Good afternoon, everybody. This is Heidi Mancini here with the Butterfly Effect. I hope everybody's having a good Memorial weekend. If you want to reach me, you can email me at camellia1@icloud.com if you have any questions or anything that you want to talk about. I'm also on Facebook under Heidi Mancini, and I also have the Butterfly page that's on Facebook, the Butterfly Effect. And I have a health and wellness page also, so there's many ways that we can reach out to each other if we need to. Today we're going to talk about self-esteem and objectification. My daughter Ava's here with me today, and we're going to talk about this together because she's from the younger generation. She's, how old are you, 24?
I'm going to be 24, yeah.
And I'm 54, so we have a 30-year age difference in our ages, and one of the things that always is a mystery to me and is intriguing to me is that as smart as we're becoming with technology and we're supposed to be becoming smarter and more evolved, women and their self-esteem and their value they place on themselves is still very low. And we have a lot of objectification now with our body. And that's always been, when I was younger, there was a movement where, this was before my time, by the way, but women wanted to look like Twiggy, she was a very skinny model. And then we got through that phase, and then women wanted to look like Pamela Sue Anderson. We went into that mode of very large breasts on a stick. And, we have different models that come out every year and different ideas of what women want to look like. And now we have the objectification of butts. And we're having all the young women now, they want to have huge butts and they don't want to train any other part of their body but have big rear ends. And if they can't naturally, or if they can't work out to get those results, they're willing to put their lives and their health and their bodies at risk to have surgery. Which, by the way, any kind of surgery, cosmetic, is high risk, and a lot of women minimize that, and they'll say, oh, it's breast augmentation or it's butt augmentation, facelifts, whatever they might be. Even when you get the reduction surgeries for weight loss, those are very high risk for death or complications also. So these are not things to be laughed at, and women really put themselves at risk to compromise their health to look like someone else. And the meaning of objectification is exactly that. When we take something and we want to make a copy of it, and when you do it within the human body form, it's called objectification. And men can also be objectified, but studies have found that they're not as objectified as much as women have been now or in the past. But a lot of the younger men that are growing up today are experiencing these issues due to social media, Instagram, Facebook, and our like or don't like society, or we're going to unfriend you, we're going to block you. There's a lot of discussion about that and self-esteem. And I also want to clarify self-esteem with your insecurity. I've had people over the years say, well, you're insecure, which means you have a low self-esteem, and those two are not connected really. That they're similar, but you can still have fears and insecurities and still have a very good self-esteem. So I'm going to ask my daughter what she thinks about when women objectify themselves in today's world and what her thoughts are.
Okay, so I don't really think that, I think it's a big deal when you take it an extra step too far. I know women that like to go dress, and they like to dress provocatively, and that's their choice. I'm not really into that. I like to be as covered as I possibly can. But I get irritated when women dress a certain way and then get pissed off when people give them attention, whether it's, negative or positive. Like, if you're gonna get judged your whole life. Whatever you do, people are gonna judge you for what you look like, what you do, what you don't do. So it's like, people just have to understand that, like, judgment is a part of society. It's just who we are as people. But, you know, you can't get pissed off when you're dressed with your boobs popped out and your ass popped out and a guy, like, you know, says you look, you know, whatever. Like, you know, people are going to look at you. I mean, that's just how it is. If I'm out and I see a girl dressing like that, I don't think that way because I'm not into that, but I stare because I'm just like, Jesus, like, you got all your stuff hanging out. But, I mean, I think when it gets to the point when people become aggressive with it or they're just being, like, plain rude, I think, like, there's a limit. But I think people just get too, I think women especially just get way too offended. Because if people would notice what women do to men to objectify them and their bodies, and men don't even act that way. Like, they just are so fine with it.
Let me stop you just for a second. There, one form of objectification for men is when women talk about the size of men's genitalia and their penis. Now, we all know that's objectification. It's taking a body part and either, you know, making fun of it or, you know, sometimes the expectations that women have. So, and we know this, that we know as women we do this in conversations sometimes, that women have that conversation. So when women feel they're being objectified by the size of their breasts, you know, different body parts, I think it's fair to say that it happens on both sides. But I do feel that women have a tendency to be attention seeking, and I think that has to do with self-esteem issues and trying to get attention. But I also feel that if you're trying to get attention by objectifying yourself, and it, you know, we use the body as a way of objectification, the physical part, but you can use yourself in other ways, and you can objectify yourself. You could be very loud and obnoxious, you know, you could be that type of personality. But women, I think in culture right now, I don't know. I don't know if their self-esteem is getting better or worse. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like things are getting a little bit more brazen. But women are trying to speak out about how they don't like to be objectified and they don't want to be viewed as a sexual object and, you know, all these other things. But yet they continue to still, you know, to use their looks as their primary, you know, goal to get what they need or what they want.
Yeah. I mean, because for me, like, people, I'm on the fence with this because for me, I can see both sides of the issue here. Because my thing is, women want to not all women, let me rephrase that. There's women out there that don't feel that way, obviously. But for the women that do, it's like they get irritated because they get pissed off when they're dressed provocatively and a guy whistles at them, yet they're totally fine going to a club and going on ladies' nights and getting it for free. So you can't really pick and choose how you want to be treated. You know, if you want to be treated as an equal, then you got to take it all or nothing. That's just how it is in this, like, how I feel about it. I mean, if you wanted to be equal to a man, you got to be able to take it. You know, if you're going to dish some crap, you got to be able to take some too, so...
Or just how about embrace this? How about if you want to dress a certain way, you dress a certain way, and you can admit that you dress a certain way because you feel good dressed this way, or I'm dressing a certain way to attract a certain type of energy or person, and just be okay with it and not make fun necessarily of other women. You know, one of the conversations that happens a lot is, you know, do girls that do stripping and adult entertainment, do they have low self-esteem or, you know, this, or do they have good self-esteem but they like to objectify themselves? You know, some of these people could argue to say no, they have a very good self-esteem and they're comfortable with their bodies, and that's why they're not necessarily objectifying themselves. I disagree with that, and just because, you know, from what I've seen and some of the people that I may know that are in adult industry, I'm not sure what to take on that. If when you're objectifying yourself as a body part, can you still complain about being objectified?
I don't think so. I think that's the whole debate is like I feel like there's women out there that want to dress how they want to dress, but they're the same ones that argue, I'm not doing it for attention. And you might not be doing it for attention, because I know there's circumstances where, if you want to dress whatever, then, and somebody hits on you, you're kind of just like, can you just, like, leave me alone? Because, like, even with me, the way I dress, I still get hit on by guys, and I'm just like, I'm not even dressed provocatively, so it really, like, doesn't matter. But I mean, I don't think women should complain about it, because, like, men don't really complain about it. Like, if they're uncomfortable, if they say something, they're a wimp, or they're a pussy, or they can't handle it. But if a woman complains about someone, making them uncomfortable, then whoa, okay, everybody listens now. So I just think if you're gonna dress a certain way, it doesn't give someone the right to, assault you. But I mean, I would just take it as a compliment if someone's like,
but I just wondered why, after all this time, that women still feel that the way to get attention is by using their bodies as a tool to, manipulate and get what they want. And especially because we're supposed to be in a time where, we're more mature and we're more evolved. And, research says and articles say that the depression rate is up due to social media and Instagram and all the social sites, because it's a fake sense of, reality. Half of this stuff is not real. And, people are buying into these illusions of fakeness, which is creating more of objectification and low self-esteem issues.
Well, I think too, like, with social media, I think it's like, I feel like social media is great if you know how to handle it. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like I handle social media pretty well, because I don't let that stuff get to me. Like, I don't look at other girls or whatever and be like, oh, I wish I looked like her. Like, I have my own self-esteem issues that I go through with my own body, but I don't ever feel like I want to look like someone else. I just want to look like a better version of myself. So it's kind of like a war with me. But I feel like with social media, I feel like the problem is like, so many people are engulfed in social media. They post pictures. They take like 80,000 pictures. They post like 2 that are like perfect to them. And then they expect to get all this love and all this attention. And then, when the social media is not there, they're like dying within themselves, because nobody like is around. No one's there to constantly feed their ego. So it's like they're at this constant war with themselves, because like everybody loves them on social media, but once they get off of it and they're in the real world, it's like, okay, you're just another, Sally. Like, no one cares. So I feel like it's just a constant battle with that.
You wonder if they got rid of social media, if things would get better or they would improve.
Yeah, I mean, I think to an extent, because I just feel like people are just really sensitive nowadays, and if people just get, like, with some women.
Well, and people get braver too. Like, people get really brave, not to interrupt you, but they get braver on social media, because a lot of the things that they do behind a camera, or the things that they verbalize, they would never do in public, or they would never, say to the person's face. And, that's what I find, funny about social media. And like you said, with all the filters and everything else that people put on their pictures, these people are not even, they don't even look like themselves,
yeah.
When they get done. But the point is that when this discussion today about objectification and self-esteem, I think the takeaway for me is that it's not getting any better. Women are objectifying themselves just the same, if not more, than we've done for like the last 100 years. And the only way that objectification is going to stop is if women get smarter and stop using, their looks and their body as a tool to attract a man, or, even other women. I mean, women, we all know, dress for other women, and they compete with other women for, attention, so they can objectify themselves without even knowing it. Because anytime we say we want to look like somebody, we want our hair done like somebody else, we want to do our makeup, we want to dress like them, you as a woman, we objectify other females also, because we put them on a pedestal, or we want to wear the makeup they wear, or have the hair the way that they wear their hair. It's like Jennifer Lopez. I like her. I think she's a beautiful woman. Being a stylist, I mean, I hear that over and over again. I want my hair like J-Lo. I want my makeup like J-Lo. I want to look like J-Lo. Well, how about, you look like yourself and play up your own beauty, whatever that might be. So I just wonder why we're still have a society where we all, especially as females, and like I said, I don't know if the younger generation of men, it's getting more that way. I try to, keep up on that. But they did say in one of the articles that I read that the male self-esteem is starting to get lower because of social media and the visual aspects that they're being fed every day also.
Yeah, because I mean, with men, like, if men don't look a certain way, then they're not good looking. Like, there's this thing too, and like women are guilty of this because there's a picture like of this guy, if they put a nerdy, not so attractive looking guy next to a good looking guy, and the nerdy guy like flirts with a girl, she's like, ew. But if a good looking guy comes up and he's got abs and he's like all fit and good looking and blah blah blah, she's all for it. And I'm like, but that's just based on looks. Like, the guy that's all buff could be a jerk, and the guy that's just kind of average, he could be like the sweetest guy possible. So it's like, men feel like they have to be big, they have to be fit, they have to like look like a certain way. So I feel like with social media and like magazines and society as a whole, I just think when we read magazines or we see TV shows or movies or commercials, I just think from birth, like when we can sit up and start watching TV, we're just fed this stuff that this is how you're supposed to look.
But it's a visual aspect of life and attraction, and women will always say that guys are so visual, and they're visual creatures, and I would have to say I think women are equally just as visible, because it's even when it comes to attraction and what we see, we like certain things. We're not all attracted to the same things, but we all tend to be attracted to what looks the best, what we view as the prettiest, what we view as the most, it could be, even in flowers, or nature. Some things are beautiful in nature that we see, and then there's other things in nature that we see and we go, oh, I don't really like the look of that, creature. So I think from birth we're programmed for, visual stimulation.
Yeah.
But the idea is to improve on self-esteem. I think, again, it goes way back to the beginning of what you're maybe taught as a child, or what visual things we're fed as human beings. And that's why I think that social media is detrimental to a lot of people and their self-esteem, because it's just getting more and more. And it's proven that when somebody posts breasts, butts, anything that has a sexual component, if you look at Instagram, those people get more followers. It's almost like the more outrageous you are, or the more you objectify a person or a subject, the more likes and the more attention you get.
Yeah.
But again, it's fake, because you don't even really know these people. What does their opinion of you matter anyway?
Yeah, I don't care. People, if I post a picture and someone like said some negative thing about it, I'd be like, okay, and like, your opinion is invalid. Like, I understand when you put your stuff out there that people are gonna have opinions. It's a human right to be able to say what you want to say. I mean, obviously, but I think as a whole, we just need to learn to just kind of like handle it with grace instead of like getting so offended about everything. Like, I mean, if I'm uncomfortable with a situation, I'll tell you I'm uncomfortable with a situation, but I'm not going to sit up there and whine and bitch and cry and be like, oh my God, I'm a woman, so I'm going to automatically be objectified and like, no, it's not how it works. Like, I don't know. I just think social media is, especially with teenagers and younger people, I just feel like it's horrible. Like, I just feel like, you're trying to find yourself as a person, and then when you go on social media and you see these women or men, it can be both, posting their bodies, and you're like, oh, I need to look like that because look at how many followers they have. Look at all the, quote unquote positive comments. And it's like, you lose your individuality, your originality, your uniqueness that makes you you because you're too focused on turning into somebody else. Like, just focus on being a better you. That's what I do every day. I don't even care.
So I think maybe as a society and as parents, we need to really discourage our kids from social media as much as we can. I mean, you have to be involved in the world to some degree, but when you're trying to develop self-esteem, which is developed like over time, making goals, setting goals, finishing things, doesn't mean you have to finish top. It doesn't mean you have to finish at 100%, but the idea that you set a goal and you did it, whatever that goal might be. That's how self-esteem is, you grow that. But as far as the visual component to self-esteem, I don't know how that's ever going to stop, and how women are ever going to be okay with, the bodies they're born with, the color of their hair. I think you can still do things for yourself, and it doesn't mean you have low self-esteem because you do your hair or you work out. Those are to better yourself. But when you start, I guess, competing, I guess would be the word, that you have to look like a certain person, in bodybuilding. When I started working out years ago, I really was so happy with my efforts to lose weight. And I thought, God, I looked really good. I was so proud of myself. But the longer I stayed in the gym, and the more competitors I was around, and the more people that I was around that had these amazing physiques, I started to feel kind of like I didn't fit in. So I went from a situation of feeling good at the general weight loss that I had gone through. Now I'm feeling bad because now I don't feel like I'm good enough to be with these people that I was around that had these amazing bodies. And of course, that's objectification too. When you take a body, whether it's a muscular body, thin body, average body, whatever it might be, it is a form of objectification. And so I found myself, all of a sudden, my self-esteem being affected, that I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't, in shape enough, and I had to, put my brakes on and go, wait a minute, I don't have to look like every other girl in this gym. I have to look like me and be happy in what I'm doing. Because then you don't like yourself. Then what happens is you start to hate yourself or not like yourself, because you're really not, you're competing with other people.
Yeah, but I think the start of self-esteem issues is like in our formative years. Like, really, they are. Like, if you, I'm 100% sure, okay, 99% sure that if you raised a child and they were not surrounded by any social media, any type of media that basically endorsed having self-esteem issues and causing all of this, and as parents we didn't like say things or do things or just kind of like act a certain way about looks and all that stuff, and you had a child grow up without any of all that, and they came as an adult and then they were exposed to it, they'd be like, what is this? Like, they wouldn't have any issue like dealing with it, because they'd be like, okay, but like, I'm fine with who I am. I just feel like when you're growing up and you're showed these things, you're told these things, you're around, these things, like I said, you have to do certain things, you got to be certain things and all this other stuff. It's like, it really screws up kids' heads, because then you start to lose who you are and who you're meant to be, like, because you're too focused on saying, okay, well, I don't have that, or I don't have this, or I don't look this way, or blah blah blah, whatever.
But here's the point: before social media came out, just 10 years ago, this objectification and maybe low self-esteem goes all the way back. Say we can even bring Marilyn Monroe into the picture.
Yeah.
And she's probably one of the first that I would know of that, I looked at as an icon. But when you start to look at things and you get older, I look at that same woman who I thought at one point was amazing human being, here's a woman that had very low self-esteem. She objectified herself. She was with very high-end men, President Kennedy being one of them. And she used her beauty and her whatever she had as a way to attract and get men. And she ended up dying, from a drug overdose. So you take a woman that supposedly has it all, she's beautiful, she had a voluptuous body, she wasn't, a size 2, she was a size 14, which is an average size for a female. And we didn't have social media back then, and we didn't have as much of the internet, and yet, we had magazines and TV that promoted things. But again, even back then, there was objectification, and it probably in a not as intense way as it is today. But I'm thinking, what would you have to do? Like lock yourself in a closet so you wouldn't have to ever be exposed to comparisons? Or
Yeah, you basically have to live under a rock, or just learn to deal with it. That's my advice. I don't know, because the thing is like, I feel like a lot of our issues, not a lot, but there's just certain issues that are in our society that I feel like are just going to always be there. We just have to know how to deal with them.
And society rewards it. I mean, here's the thing, when you think about it, the sexier something is, the more sexualized I want to say something is, the more attention it gets, and the more reward it gets. So it's only going to perpetuate, objectification and low self-esteem.
Yeah.
As long as you feed the beast, so to speak. I mean, one of the instances I would use is a comparison to that is when you do adult dancing, stripping, and then that. If those girls did not get rewarded in some way, whether it be monetarily or the attention, they wouldn't do it. So there's something inside of them, whatever that might be, that they're missing, that they're getting a need met. So it goes way, way back to even before, what our visual things that we see. I think it goes way back to our nurturing, like you said, the formidable years, but even way before then. If somebody's lacking, love, attention, nurturing, those kinds of things, I would tend to think that you would be more apt to go into some type of business where you could get that kind of love and validation and attention, and then you reap the benefits of being paid very well.
Yeah, I think when people do stuff like that, where they're basically exposing themselves in like that vulnerable way, I think people do it for different reasons. I feel like there's some people that do it because they, they, like you said, they want the attention, but I also feel like some people do it just because they just like if you're in the adult industry, they just do it because they just like to have sex. That's just their thing. Or they just do it because it's, it's easy for them, and it's easy to make money. I just feel like certain people, I don't feel like everyone does it because they have self-esteem issues. I don't.
So it could be fair to say that a female can actively enjoy having sex and being, in that situation, and she could be okay to like it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's okay, and I feel like it's okay for her to be, to do that, because the thing is, it's for millennia, it's been okay for men to, have sex with all the women he wants, and that's fine. But a woman does it, and she's a hoe, she's a prostitute, she's whatever. So I feel like, women are allowed to like sex too. They're allowed to, do that kind of stuff. So,
right, and when you think about adult entertainment, think about how, I don't know, I don't want to talk to you about this because that's kind of weird.
Oh my God.
But the way that adult entertainment
Yeah.
has evolved, especially pornography over the years, you always have the guy who has like the huge thing, and the way that they portray sex and pornography, it's always the woman being dominated, it's always the woman doing the deed, and those type of things. And there's a switch in pornography now where women are becoming the dominatrix, and they're becoming more assertive in the sex acts and what they want, and I have to agree. I think that there are women out there that can say, I enjoy my career, I enjoy my choices. I mean, why? But for years we were told as females, you're not allowed to enjoy sex, you're only to have sex just to please the opposite sex. And I think, like I said, the objectification part of all that, I'm not sure if you're always being objectified or not. I mean, I'm not sure what the dividing line is when we can say that's a form of objectification, and no, that's a form of somebody liking what they do, well, no matter what it is. And why do we always have to consider it objectification all the time?
I think the problem is that everybody wants to call everything objectification, and I think that's where the problem lies. I feel like people it's kind of like the word triggered. You know, everybody uses it now, so it's lost its meaning, and I feel like that's the problem with objectification. It still exists, it's still a problem. However, I just feel like because everybody uses it in every freaking situation, that it's like it doesn't have its meaning anymore. Like, a woman gets catcalled, you know, a guy whistles at her, oh, I'm being objectified. Like, my whole thing is, why is it okay for like it just seems like it's not okay for someone to give somebody a compliment. I think that, I mean, I've been whistled at. I've had people say that I look good, whatever. I had a guy chase me down the street and ask for my number, and I had to tell him I'm gay. So it happens, and I handle it maturely and with respect, so I'm not trying to, upset anybody. But it's just the point of, like, where does the limit lie? Because it's like everybody's like, oh, I'm objectified.
But here's the thing with objectification going the other way with men. Okay, women, you can't rewire a man's brain, right? If a man sees a woman, he sees a trap. Men like pretty things too, and they like aesthetics, whatever it might be. We're all attracted to whatever. But here's a form of objectification with males. When a woman says, well, I have to be with a guy that makes a lot of money, that is a form of objectification. I only want to be with a guy that's 6'2" and dark hair and dark eyes. That's kind of objectification. And like we said earlier, we objectify men's genitalia. When we say, well, how big is his dick? I mean, you hear that all the time. Women talk about that all the time. I hear it in the salon. I hear it in the gym. I've been privy to that kind of conversations and throughout my life. And it's like, why does it always have to go down to the size of the guy's stuff?
I know, and then that makes guys feel like stuff or feel like crap, because if their stuff isn't,
and
up to average, it's like,
that's
Jesus.
the other thing. It's not even
it's like, good
women,
Lord.
When you think about it, women, we think we have so much power over a man because we have a vagina, and there's a lot of vaginas out there. There's a lot of women out there, so it's not like you have that kind of power. Actually, with the men, they have to have performance behind, their stuff. So I would think with men, it would create even more self-esteem issues with them. But I think as young men, they're forced to overcome these issues very young, because when they're being raised, if you whine or you cry or you complain, you're called the baby or you're called a wimp. When women do it, what do they get? They get rewarded.
Yep, and I think that's the underlying problem, because there's so many people nowadays. It makes me so aggravated, because I'm just like, it's all about equality. Like, it really is. Like, I get irritated when anybody whines and they cry. Like, shut up. Like, that's just my opinion. I don't care if you're a guy or if you're a girl. I don't think it's right for only females to be able to complain and whine and cry about things. And then you have these men that are going through something, and because society or family or parents or whoever told you it's not okay for men to cry, they feel like they have to hold everything in. Like, that's not fair. And like, that's a whole that can screw with their self-esteem too, because they're like, I can't get out my feelings, so I feel bad about myself, or I feel bad on myself and I can't tell anybody because I'm a man, so I can't feel bad. I always have to be confident, and I think that's a problem too.
Well, it is a problem, because in society there's more suicide with men than there are with women. So I mean, that has to be looked at, and that would be a show that we could do at another time, talk about men and depression and their things. But I think when we talk about equality, you can't have the default, and in some situations with some women, they want equality, but they still want to have the default. Well, I'm a woman and I deserve this, or whatever it might be. So I think objectification and self-esteem, I would have to say, in my opinion, that it's never going to change. None of it, because we're supposedly evolving, getting smarter, and yet it seems like it's getting worse. So I think people need to get smarter.
Yeah, I also think too, like, I feel like people need to use that word correctly. Like, not everybody, honestly, is being objectified. Like, objectified is a very, like, strong word, and I feel like, I said, like, I feel like everyone overuses it. I feel like, the reason I don't like the word being used and just thrown all over the place is because women, really, if you want it, like, the thing is, people know what they like, and if they are attracted to somebody that they see and they want to say something, I'm sorry, but you should have the right to be able to say something. Like, it's not like you're trying to have sex with them, like, right there on the street. Like, if someone's assaulting you, yeah, like, kick them in the balls. But I'm just saying, like, if, if someone comes up to you and, like, says you look good, like, that should be fine. Like, why? I don't understand why everybody gets offended, because it's okay for a woman to do that to a guy. And he might be so uncomfortable, but do you think he's going to say something? No, because he can't. He doesn't feel like he can. If a girl walks up to a guy who's buff, he's got all these muscles, it's okay for a woman to walk up to him and rub on his body and be like, "Oh, you look so good." But a guy does that, girl, she's screaming rape. I mean, that's the problem. Like, I think that's, like, the big problem is, like,
But it
why?
has to stop, and it has to stop with my thing is, I think the problem lies with the female gender. I mean, I hate to say it, but women need to grow up. And I mean, that would be my takeaway from everything, is that just because you're objectified, or you feel you're objectified, doesn't always mean that it's a negative, if that's the situation. And that women need to just grow up, and part of self-esteem development, part of feeling good about yourself, is accepting some of the things that maybe we don't like, or that we don't agree with, or that it's okay for women to dress a certain way, or women to act a certain way, and not be considered objectified. But also, if you're going to behave and look a certain way, you can't get offended. If somebody looks at you, because I've seen people, it's not even the sexual component, I've seen people out that, the way they put their clothes together, and their hair, and sometimes the piercings, like I'll see gauges, like these really big gauge things, and I'm like, holy crap. I look because it's different. It's not that I look because it's something I would necessarily do, but maybe somebody would say, well, they're objectifying themselves because they have all these piercings, or they have all these tattoos on their body. No, maybe they just like tattoos, and maybe they like piercings, and they're an artsy kind of a person. It doesn't always have to be a negative connected to the objectification. But again, I guess the big question would be, is self-esteem, better or worse? So I guess we can maybe expand on this show another time, but if anybody has any questions or any commentary about objectification and self-esteem issues, and self-esteem cannot be confused with insecurity, because I hear that a lot. Well, you're just insecure. Fears are separate from self-esteem. However, if you let fear control your life, it can affect your self-esteem at some level. So it was a good show. Yeah. I don't know if we solved anything today or anything.
I think we had a good discussion on
food for thought.
Yeah. Because this can be expanded on, like, so much, because there's so much to talk, like, that we can branch out on.
But if anybody has any topics or subjects they want to talk about, or you want to give us some feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear them, and we can answer you privately, or we can do a show on something you're interested in. So you can reach me again at my email, camelio1@icloud.com. My daughter Ava Marie, what's your email and your...
Oh, it's my email is avabody@yahoo.com. It's just avabody@yahoo.com. It's just my name.
And we want your feedback. We want to know how you feel about the shows. I'm kind of new at this, but it's a passion of mine. I want to try to help children and women in the society to grow and be, healthy, happy individuals. So everybody have a great day, and we'll be back in a few weeks.
We'll probably be back next week.
All right, we'll be back next week.
God.
Thankfully for my daughter, she's my she helps me out because I'm so busy, right?
Yeah, she has like 20 jobs, so I'm her editorial.
So she's my she's my producer,
Yeah.
and I love having her around to pick her brain. And she's smart and she's beautiful, and
Thank you.
she's been through her share of crap for a young adult. And I guess the only thing we can do in life is keep breathing and keep moving and keep helping each other out.
Yep. All right.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, guys.